story I want to tell today is called The Blinding of Truth by Falsehood. Okay? And it goes something like this. And I move. Okay. And it goes something like this. Once upon a time, truth ruled the world. And when truth ruled the world, there was harmony, there was balance, and there was prosperity. When truth ruled the world. People understood that there was no separation from the spiritual and the physical. That what was above was below, and what was below was above. They understood that life was not finite. It wasn't all consisting of beginning, middles, and ends, and no more. That life was cyclic, and that what goes around comes around, and that sun rises always, always, always follow sunsets when truth ruled the world. When truth ruled the world, people understood the dangers of polarities, and so they lived in a world of both and beyond. They saw opposites as complementary and generative. No one was a stranger. Everybody was just somebody's mother, sister, daughter going to or from home when truth ruled the world. When truth ruled the world, the cup was always half full and not half empty. People were not victims. Each one, in their own way, was a victor when truth ruled the world. But truth had a brother, and his brother's name was Falsehood. And this brother one day decided to ambush truth. And so he hid behind the bushes. And as truth walked by, Falsehood leaped up, grabbed truth, tied her arms, tied her legs, and blinded her eyes. And then threw her into a hole. When truth left the world slowly became darker. It became less bright. It started to turn itself upside down, and it shuddered in shame because what was false was now true, and what was true was now hidden. And so all of a sudden in this world, dichotomies came up, and everything became split into male, female, rich, poor, black, white, tall, short, skinny, able, disabled, and all were separate. And everyone started to look at each other as the other, as that which should be feared, as that which should be ridiculed, as that which should be discarded. It was a very, very sad world, this world of falsehood. And people started to lock their doors. And as they locked their doors, they locked their minds. And as they locked their minds, they locked their hearts. And as they locked their hearts, they lost their souls. It was a very sad world when truth ruled the world. Silence took over speech. Fear became the dominant mode. People were told what to do and not asked what they thought. Falsehood's power was so complete that truth was forgotten and media replaced history, and women were made subservient. And this world continued in this dismal state for a long, long time, for centuries, a long, long time. But one day, there were a group of women. And these women knew in their hearts that this world was not the way it was supposed to be. That there was another world, that there was another way. And they knew it because they could hear it whispering in the wind. They could see it in the waning and the waxing of the moon. And they could hear it in the very, very small voices of their grandmother spirits that whispered to them nightly, "This is not the way. There is another way. Separation is unnatural. Collaboration is important. Hate can be destructive. Love can be overwhelming. Resentment can eat you up. Release makes you free." And so these women said, "Let us seek truth. Let us go out into truth wherever they could find her. And one day they heard this tiny sound. This tiny sound. The sound wasn't really outside. The sound was something inside that was growing and growing and growing. And so they came together and they found the hole that truth was in. And they took their hands and they dug. And they used anything they could to try to get truth out. Any means, any resources to pull truth from the confines that she had been held in. And they brought her home. And they bathed her. And they gave her oil for her skin and perfume for her hair. And they asked her to speak and tell them, how did they come back? What ways are the ways to go? And truth says, listen to your ancestors. Listen to your grandmothers. Listen to your grandfathers. Listen to the women who have led you, who have inspired you. Women like Mildred and Jane. Mildred and Jane, who were the founders of the AAWCC. Listen to them. Listen to them. They gave you the story. They said, come together. Don't work in terms of ego. Work in we go. They said, build relationships. They said, build relationships. Call upon your existing resources. You've got connections. You've got organizations. Get those organizations together. Organize. Collaborate and research. Find out what are the necessary skills that you need to bring truth back into your world, into your colleges, into your environments, into your life. Articulate your vision and work hard. Work hard. And remember, as I believe Jane says, what matters is to study and be true to oneself. That is the first step for gaining truth. And so the women listened. They listened to women like Jane and Mildred. They listened to women like their grandmothers and their aunties and people that they had read about in books, and they became strong. Because as they stood on the shoulders of these women, they were not precariously balancing. They were strong and supported because as they stood on their shoulders, the women supported them. The women supported them with stories about how to make a way out of no way. The women supported them by examples, by their pain, their suffering, and their overcoming. And they realized they weren't alone. And once they realized that, they were able to march into history, to march into their communities, to march into their lives as seekers and bringers and carriers of truth.